Are you struggling for consistency in your sim racing? Does your iRating look like a roller coaster? If so, we have good news for you. The way to get more consistent is to first understand what you're doing differently than the professionals. And VRS is the answer. With our competitive subscription, you will have the telemetry, setups, tutorials, and everything else you need to fully analyze your driving. Our data packs and the ability to compare your driving with the best in the world will show you exactly where to adjust your inputs, change your driving line, and shave seconds off of your lap times. And our powerful and precise Direct Force Pro wheelbase and precision pedals are being used by some of the world's best drivers. All these champions agree that VRS hardware is not just the best on the market, it's also priced well below the competition. So if you're looking to upgrade to direct drive and the best pedals in sim racing, VRS is your answer. If you want to get better, get faster, and make it happen sooner rather than later, you owe it to yourself to find out why so many people are switching to VRS. You'll be so glad that you did. Visit www.virtualracingschool.com and learn why the best use VRS.
Hello and good evening, and here we are at the Watkins Glen circuit, just outside of New York, in the state of New York should I say, and the owner of the circuit is the NASCAR, but this time it is for GT3 action of the ARL trophy here at the former home of the American Grand Prix. My name is David Whitehouse. I have next to me Sebastian Boscher-Williams, and in the production office is Jamie Fluke. Now, Sebastian, the Watkins Glen circuit, such a popular circuit for many who have probably only just done the 6-hour race around here.
Yeah, good evening, David. Good evening, everybody at home. You're right, we've just had the Watkins Glen 6 hours. And so, yeah, everybody's very well practiced. And you're right, it's such a popular track. I mean, it's one of my favorite tracks to race on. It's got such a good combination of technical, you know, high-speed corners. It's got the infamous bus stop, and then you've got sort of an easier, you know, the boot and the toe of the boot where maybe it's a little bit easier. Maybe you could even think about getting a few overtakes in. It's got it all, and I certainly absolutely adore this track. And have a look at a track guide as we see turn one. Got to be careful not to run wide. Got the braking zone right, and then you're through this flat-out section of turns 2, 3, and 4. Don't really have to worry about that. Of course, no other traffic, unlike the 6 hours. So you just be focusing on trying to get the best run you can into the bus stop, which you see. Take the apex super, super early. Make sure to take as much curb as you possibly can. And we'll be seeing drivers almost get air through the bus stop. Then we come into turn 5, the carousel. Got to make sure that you stay to the inside as possible. Scrub off as little speed as possible. Manage those tire temperatures and get the best exit as we head towards turn 6. Brake as late as you dare. Get the nose of the car into the apex and focus as much as you can on the exit for the short run towards turn 7. A very good overtaking opportunity. If you're feeling a little bit adventurous, get to the apex as soon as you can. Get the run out towards turn 8. That's quite a long straight, deceptively long straight. Always make sure to be watching in your mirrors as you head into the braking zone of turn 8. That leads very quickly to the left-hander of turn 9. Wall just on the outside, so easy to end up in the grass and in the wall. Turn 10, the penultimate corner. It is flat out in these cars if you're feeling brave enough, but watch out for any dirty air. And then turn 11, again, such a deceptive corner. It looks easy, but I can promise you it's anything but. Watch out for the wall on exit. So many drivers, I think, are going to end up in there today. And that is a lap of Watkins Glen. And David, I am so excited for this race. I mean, I've always been inspired from having the Watkins Glen 6 hours, but I just love seeing GT3 cars around here.
Yeah, it's a great old-fashioned circuit for many of the drivers to get their hands on. And just while I think about it, we do have a few pit lane starters who will not be qualifying onto the grid tonight. We have Leon Verheist, Mad Surge, Paul Joseph Cliff and Russell Fowler all with pit lane starts, and we do have an interesting situation that we actually have a few drivers in the championship on minus points at the moment because they've done the first round and decided they want to change their car, so they lose 5 points. But as you can see there at the top of pro standards, Christophe Herbenot not changing his car. He's the Belgian staying in the BMW after he took the victory in the opening round ahead of Carl Winkler in the Audi. Thomas Cope coming with a charging drive back to third after an incident in the opening corner. So that is the pro standings so far. In the Pro-Am standings, we have Martin Deckens and Gretchen Schuttenbacken at the top with Alex Gueret rounding out the podium in Silverstone. And in the Am category, we also have the Christoph Otterholt in first place from David Gill, who did a very good recovery drive to move up behind Otterholt in the end, having to pit twice. And Russ Fowler in third, so that pit lane start not going to be the greatest news for Fowler, but it's early days in this championship.
Certainly is, and also crucial to be consistent. Really interesting though to hear about all of the drivers that have decided to change their car after round one, clearly not getting along with their machinery and opting for that gamble almost of taking that 50-point hit to just see if they might get along with their new machinery. See the 220 Porsche at the moment coming through the penultimate corner. We're starting to see it actually looks like there's a little bit of damage there to the front end of that car. But what I'm sort of surprised about it, David, is that, I mean, I guess we've got 50 cars and it's hard to find the gap, but everybody seems kind of happy to run sort of in with about a second of each other. You would have thought that they'd be sort of getting some dirty air and they'd be wanting to find their own gap, but looks like they're very happy to stay within that slipstream range.
Yeah, they will be, and the slipstream isn't the end of, you know, it's quite useful around this circuit. It is quite wide, you can get out of each other's way, as the drivers will prove to here tonight. And so far it's quite an interesting grid because we actually have the majority of the pros at the front of the field. We normally have a few mixing it in, but so far early in this qualifying session, it is all pros in the top 15 of this session.
Yeah, all pros in the top 15, and just judging by a very precautionary glance at the timing screens, a lot of Mercedes. Pole position actually is a Mercedes. You see the manufacturers on your screen at the moment. I mean, Thomas Cope, though, flying the Italian flag with that Lamborghini entry is Otterholt, another one of the non-Mercedes drivers, but always a good mix. I don't see any McLarens, and David, I'm going to have to throw it back to you on this one, because are McLaren still within this series, or have they been replaced by another car?
They are still in this series. We only had one on the grid last week. Who was driving that? I'm just having a look down the entry list to see if I can remember. But we only had, as I say, we only had one McLaren on the grid last week, and I think he may have been replaced, or that driver is not here tonight. So, yeah, McLaren not the most popular of cars to pick for the teams. Tom Bingham had one last year and he had to fight it all the way from the AM category with his teammate Andy Thompson. Tom actually went to Mercedes this year. As you say, a lot of drivers have, but what I was surprised about is the performance of the Audi, especially Carl Winkler at Silverstone, who managed to pull second place and almost got that victory. Yeah,
there's a bit of an incident on the straight, as you straight to me there. Yeah, of course the Mercedes, the new car, the new machinery, and everybody wanting to have a go. And yeah, surprised as well. It was surprisingly very popular, the Audi, in the Watkins Glen 6 hours. Did very well up and down the field. Christophe Herbenau at the moment. I mean, just look at the timing. Top 15 separated by 9/10 of a second. Such a competitive field at the moment. Herbenau really needs to improve on his time, because He's only 6 tenths off the leader, but down in 11th place. He'll be looking to find any form of extra time he can find, because that will greatly help his chances. And of course, we have the inverted top 10. So if he can just find, I mean, what, a hundredth of a second to get into that top 10, he'll be starting on reverse grid pole. So Herbenauer really has got work to do in the last 2.5 minutes of this qualifying session.
Yeah, he is a driver we've seen coming through the field before, and Christoph Herbenauer will be looking to just cement his championship lead here at Watkins Glen. But so far it is Isaacson on the pole position from Thomas Cope and Sapini. Herbenauer moves up into 4th place. That's better for him, only 4 tenths off the lead. That just shows how good a lap it was by Isaacson. 3 tenths clear of anybody else, even Thomas Cope.
Yeah, Isaacson normally in Formula 3 machinery, but making a switch very successfully to the GT3 category. Mark Fletcher now coming through the penultimate corner. You can just see how fast that wall comes at you on the outside. And now let's see, is he going to be flat through the penultimate corner? Yes, he is going to run over that curve. No longer do you get a 1x through there, so the drivers are always encouraged to use that extra space on the track. Doesn't cut it too close to the wall. That looks like a tidy final sector from Mark Fletcher. Doesn't manage, yes he does manage to improve on his time up to 2nd place. The first man within 3 tenths of Isaacson's time. Great job there by Mark Fletcher. Now what can Simone do? The 155 Mercedes crosses the line. And are we seeing more drivers improving? Are the track conditions getting better? Doesn't look like it's happened for the 155 car. 1 minute 43.5, also close to their fastest lap time. But it does look, David, like the track is still speeding up, so drivers still could improve at this late stage in qualifying.
Yeah, it is still a chance for all the drivers to move forward. As you say, a brilliant lap by Mark Fletcher there to move up onto the front row ahead of Thomas Cope and Lucas Lang down in 7th. Here's Brandon Tabone coming across the line. He looks to whether he can move up the field. It doesn't look like there's an improvement there for Tabone in the 122 Mercedes. And drivers now on their last attempts if they're out there, so it's really going to have to be a good push by them. Here is Tom Dadswell pushing hard in the BMW. He comes across the line from 8th place. Can he improve? No, he stays down in 8th place for Altitude Esports. So it does seem like the faster laps were done a little earlier in the session as the 10 minutes clocks by, and that is the end of the session for these drivers.
Is indeed, just we wait for the grid. Of course, such a huge grid tonight, and we're going to be up against it, aren't we, as commentators, to try and get you through all of the grid results.
Yeah, it's not the easiest amount of drivers to try and catch up on, but we do manage to do that. And we just have this little 1 minute warm-up part where we wait for the qualifying results to come through the system. But Watkins Glen, as we said before, drivers will have a lot of experience of here from the 6 hours. Most of the drivers will have done it at some point over the weekend. So they will know the limits of these cars, especially around here. They may have used it at MP2, but the GT3s were out there. And we're just looking very quickly as it swaps to the second to last corner, which since a couple of updates ago is a very slippery sort of corner and catches a lot of people out that you don't expect.
Oh, it certainly does. Really has changed ever since, as you rightly pointed out, the track got updated and had this facelift, and yeah, it's super slippy, really hard. And as I was mentioning in the track guide, you can take it flat, but you have to be super committed to do that. Any sort of lift or hesitation can really affect the car.
And here we are with the grid and the qualifying results. So as you can see, the top 10 results have been reversed in this. So Isaacson, who set that stunning lap, is down in 10th. But on pole position is Dominic Swarsky, Brandon Tabone alongside him on front row, Tom Dadswell and Lucas Lang on the second row. Third row is Ketty Larson and championship leader Christoph Herbenauer. Kimon Sapini and Thomas Cope round out row 4 ahead of Mark Fletcher, Niels Erik Isaacson. Further down the grid, we've got Mats Christian Strumbacken. It's a name we will get by the end of the season. He is on pole for Pro-Am ahead of Marcini, the Pro driver. Terrain and Deckens, the Pro-Am leader there, just ahead of Paul Cowlishaw. Chris Danes looking for better progress from 20th this time out. And further down, we look at Christoph Otterholt taking Am pole for Scarrat Racing, ahead of Greg Hubler and Stuart Winness with bad qualifying again. He'll be looking to move through ahead of Tom Bingham, David Gill, Lee Bailey third in the Am category. Graham Lynch runs up 37th ahead of Luke Pint. And then we have the drivers at the back who will not be qualifying and starting from pit lanes, which is Clist, Verhulst, Sergio and Fowler.
As we see all of the cars getting ready, and yeah, watch out for those drivers at the back. It's going to be really crucial, and turn one as well is so tricky on the opening lap. Everybody's got to be cautious. It's certainly going to be one to watch, this one.
It certainly will be, as the BMW leads the cars round. The safety car is in and he's gone nice and early from the pole position. Swarsky has gone nice and early. Dadswell is trying to follow him along, and Tabone has just been left a little bit back. Lucas Lang having a look up the inside of Brandon Tabone, but it's Dadswell who moves through alongside Swarsky in turn one. Looks like everybody may have got through turn one closely, but this is the danger point. If cars go side by side through these sweeps and one of them makes a mistake, the barriers are so close and it can easily block the track, as we saw last year, and the leaders are just going up towards the chicane. It looks like everybody has got through safely.
As indeed, remarkably clean start from the field. Everybody looking clean through the bus stop as well. You were talking about how difficult the uphill section is in the bus stop. It's certainly not much easier, but everybody managing it super well at the moment. Isaacson hasn't really had the start he would have wanted. He remained in 10th place. We head towards turn 6, and and there's a spin in the background. That's one of the BMWs off the track. Didn't quite catch the number, but our first issue of the race. Who is that? That's the 198 car I think I spotted there. Who is that? That's the 198 car I think I spotted there. That's not a good start. A 188, I do apologise, and precarious sort of waiting on the exit as there's more side-by-side racing as we head towards turn 8. Looking all nice and clean so far. Going to squeeze the 155 car out to the wall. That's going to allow the 177 car to get in on the action. This is Isaacson. He needs to make these moves if he wants to get up the order. Our quickest man in qualifying, racing side by side as we head into the penultimate corner.
Yeah, he's got to try and start making a move forward on the grid. But here is Dominic Swarsky leading lap 1. Brandon Tabone got back up into second place ahead of Tom Dadswell. Lucas Lang in 4th, and Christoph Herbeno up to 5th. Thomas Cope has moved forward a couple of positions into 6th. Ketty Larson losing out 2 positions. Mark Fletcher up 1. Sapini up 2. Down 2, and Isaacson in 10th, as you say. And that is where we saw the lights being flashed already by Sapini, who wasn't happy with being run wide in one of the corners. But it's early days in this race, and as we now look at Martin Deckens, who's took the lead of Pro-Am from Geston Strumbacken early on, and Deckens a great start up into 14th place.
Yeah, and just to sort of, will make Deckens very happy that his main competitor, Thrain, is down in 17th place, was passed, I think, twice on the run towards the bus stop. So absolutely looking great for the 227 car. This is Christoph Otterholt, who is in the lead of the AM category, having a little bit of a go at one of the Pro-Am cars. Stuart Winness, though, is dropping down the order. I think he's lost 2 positions. That'll be 3. He's on the outside. So Winness, one of our pro drivers, weekend has gone from bad to worse. A bad qualifying and bad opening few laps. There's a spin in the background, I think, there. I think that was one of the Mercedes going round, David. Oh, and there's going to be a huge accident here.
It looks like it's Graham Lynch who... Actually, I think Graham Lynch was trying to avoid it. It was one of the Mercedes who had spun. I think it was a dark coloured Mercedes that spun. Stuart Winness had to avoid it. Graham Lynch had to avoid it, and a few other cars spun round. So just the dangers of being back in the pack with this many cars on such a tight circuit in terms of where the barriers are. We're just going to have a look at a replay here, and it's Chris Ranch coming down into the corner, and he has to avoid the BMW on the inside, and then it's just concertina effect. So Chris Rance goes round, gets caught. I think that's David Gill in the Audi having to recover, so he will be on yet another recovery drive this season for the app category.
Yeah, it certainly will. I think it was, as you rightly pointed out, the concertina effect there was the major cause of the accident. But I think, you know, also just drivers being distracted by all of the other cars as we see the Mercedes almost take flight over the curb through the bus stop. I said they were going to be getting close to that barrier. Didn't expect them to be getting so close. Of course, these drivers are on, you know, fairly full fuel tanks. So there we need to be a little bit careful as we see just down the order, sort of in the lower echelons of our timing stands. That 25th place is hotly contested at the moment as we look at Kimon Sapini ahead of Fletcher. Isaacson was unable to make that move. Isaacson really struggling at the moment. He had the pace in qualifying, but David, it just doesn't look like he can transfer that to the race, at least not at the moment.
Yeah, no, it's just biding his time probably, saving a little bit of fuel as we look at Lassie Saltonson looking to the outside of Paul Collishaw. Collishaw moving up into the Pro-Am category this season from the Am category and just having to defend off the attentions of the green Mercedes. Behind is Gardner and Hubler, who we know are quick in this class, and Regenwetter, and they are all trying to close down on the Porsche Fawn as we see Luke Pint being overtook there by the Audi and the BMW. Is it going to go around the outside? Yes, it is. And Luke Pint just trying to stay out of trouble at this stage of the race. And sometimes it's a sensible thing to do with this many drivers in the race.
It certainly is. It's such a skill, and I think all of the drivers would have had that reinforced by racing here at the 6 hours. Just that ability just to go, actually, I don't think I really want to race this, and I'll sort of see where it goes and try and get you back sort of at the latest point of the race. Of course, we've got an hour's race, and you know it's a sprint race to some, but it's also sort of an endurance type sprint race. You've got to really think about the end of the race. I think Plouch out on track. One of the Audi drivers has had some issue. This is Carl Winkler at the moment, side by side. This is Plouch, the 180 car. I think he's run a little bit wide through the carousel, and that's put him on the back foot. Everybody looking fairly good so far. No major battles, and I think you made a really, really good point about Isaacson, and I think other drivers are doing it as well. It's just saving fuel at this point, just sort of trying to get their car, get the fuel mileage, and get the tyres into a good window to carry them throughout the race. So I think it's sort of a little bit of a strategic race at the moment, but I'm sure in a few laps' time, when drivers have had enough of their fuel saving, it's going to become crazy once again.
Yeah, Mark Powlich just having a bit of an issue, I think possibly in the chicane, which made him run wide into the carousel. And it was something I noticed, I spotted for 6 hours for a team on Saturday night, and the first curb on the right hand side into that chicane, and we saw it just not long ago by Christophe Herbinot. You literally, if you hit it wrong, you take off, and if you land with your tyres turned or anything like that, it can split you off into a wall, and that wall is quite far away, but you can make it there. So it's one thing which you've really got to do over that, is not just get the line right, but straighten the wheels so you land and then be able to turn into the second part.
Yeah, it reminds me of sort of some of the curbs at the Nordschleife, you know, ones that you either have to fully commit to and take all of the curb or avoid them at any cost. You can't really do sort of the half ground of sort of taking a little bit of it, because, as you rightly say, it's going to throw you into the barrier, and that is your race over. So yeah, these drivers have got a real challenge out there, and the track temperature is super high at the moment, 47 degrees. And if anybody did run the Watkins Glen, they know that tyres were a huge talking point within the GT3 field. You know, tyres really going off towards the end of your stint. So any drivers out there that can just sort of bring their tyres in gently, save a little bit on the opening few laps, are really going to pay dividends as we head to the closing stages of the race. This is, you know, one that I don't think we're really going to know who the winner is until the final lap, and that's exactly why we love Watkins Glen. But Sapini acting like a cork in the bottle at the moment, behind or ahead of Fletcher and Isaacson. Larson now just sort of starting to extend that gap, and I think if you are sort of Fletcher and Isaacson, maybe it is worth taking that gamble of using up a little bit more tyre to get past Sapini to be able to try and catch up to this train, because they're currently heading off into the distance.
Yeah, the gap is extending just slightly between 7th and 8th, but still only 4.5 seconds off the lead as we head back to the front as Dominic Swarovski leads into turn number 1 by 0.7 of a second for Bradley Tabone, matching each other on the last lap. And this is impressive pace for Swarovski. You've got to remember, he qualified 10th quickest. Now, the grid is close, but that was probably 6-7 off the pace. But he's leading this comfortably. Tabone only half a second behind, but it's not like he's being overwhelmed with position as Thomas Cope is really pushing Christophe Herbinot, the championship leader. And Herbinot was all over back of Lucas Lang, who is now behind Thomas Cope as well. So Lang did sort of fall back in that last lap, and not the way the Mercedes driver would want to have his first sort of 10. Oh, and we got a big crash in the background. Not sure who that was. It looked like a Lamborghini, but I'm not too sure. There was a car off in the background. We might try and catch who that is later on. But yeah, we're now looking at Martin Penkafa, who is racing for Fiercely Forward, who we've already seen that livery out further in the field, and he is currently 22nd overall, right behind Christoph Regenwetter.
He is, and just behind him is the Ferrari of Collishaw that had quite a lot of, quite substantial damage to the front of his car, so watch out for him as we've got a little bit of racing in the background. This is Rennie Hugenhout and Alterholt as we head towards turn 8, the number, or the driver in 27th place, the 221 car on the inside of turn 8. That Mercedes is also carrying a little bit of damage. Hugenhout trying to go all the way around the outside of Tom Bingham. Not going to really be able to do it there. You're going to have to almost sort of concede this battle for the next few corners, try to get the run probably out of turn 1 and up towards the bus stop. And that Merc, they are rapid in a straight line, the Mercedes. They are one of the fastest cars out there in terms of straight line performance, but that damage at the rear will certainly not be helping Tom Bingham. So I think the BMW driver needs to use that to his advantages. Once again, this sort of battle all the way down for sort of 4th place down is looking super intense at the moment, and Isaacson now trying to make a move on the Mercedes driver, can't find a way through. Brilliant defense from the 155 car. Didn't feel the need to defend cold air. Isaacson now seems like he's getting a little bit frustrated behind the sister car, and he's going to have to now think about where he can get past, and almost feels like Isaacson's going to have to start thinking of adventurous ways. I think Lucas Lang has had some form of issue.
Yeah, it's Lucas Lang round as we enter the boot. The German, very unusual to see Lucas Lang make a mistake. It looks like he may have just spun it on his own. He is dropped down now to about 14th place as we look at a replay here. This is as he come over hill just on the change of course from a short course, and yeah, just the back end goes round. Manages to keep it out the wall and not affect anybody else, just about, well avoided by everybody else. Lang gets out the way and rejoins very nicely as well. So not affecting anybody's race, but not the way that Lucas Lang would have wanted to continue this race. And I was just having a look there at Isaacson, who we were trying to watch coming through the field. And actually, in the end, he's lost position to Carl Winkler and all that, trying to avoid it.
Oh wow, that's a huge issue for Isaacson out there. He really needs to avoid losing these positions and just focus on making it up the grid. Isaacson had the pace, of course, he was our pole sitter, and he really needs to convert that into good points, but it doesn't look like that's happening at the moment. Runs a little bit wide through turn 1. That was the old Watkins Glen line. If anybody was around when the old Watkins Glen in iRacing was in rotation, you'd know that you could run wide there, but now gives you a 1x pretty easily and can even give you a slowdown. So Isaacson really can't be out there that much. And he's got to sort of regain his composure and just focus on making it up the order, because you know his main championship rivals Herbenauer, Cope have managed to sort of make their way up the field. So yeah, Isaacson on the back foot at the moment, you'd have to say. Yeah,
it's very much a back foot as Martin Deckens is up behind Martin Paulich now, who has Kessler right behind and Lucas Lang a little bit further back. There is 3 Mercedes in that livery of Lucas Lang, so you may think it's Lucas Lang because we've been used to it for a couple of years, just him in the car. There is 3 of them now with Kessler and Sapini as a team effort, so They are going for the Drivers' Championship, obviously, and the Teams' Championship, which will come into effect later on in the season as we now head back to the front. And this, it's not like the Polish driver Swaski is holding them up. And Tabone and Dadswell going with him and opening a gap to Christoph Herbeno, who is really needing to close this gap now up. I think we saw it in a few rounds last year where they just slowly close the gap up to be there when the pit stop starts. And Tom Cope going with him. Thomas Cope, who had to charge through the field last time out, is now just having to sit there and wait his turn and not have to do all the overtaking using up his tyres.
Yeah, Herbeno actually was one of the fastest drivers on track last time by, and it does sort of seem that he is sort of slowly catching up to the top three, not really wanting to push his tyres or push his fuel or push anything really. He's just sort of driving very much within himself. Nikolai Thrain, the 220 Porsche, down in 16th place, is under pressure from Master Sorensen as we head towards the bus stop corner. Thrain not gonna get any slipstream assistance, so he is sort of the head of the field. He's pushing away all of the air, and the Mercedes behind will be very thankful for that. Thrain have to work very hard to keep that position. That Mercedes is ultra quick on the straight lines. We've got the battle of the BMWs, few positions. This is Otterholt still trying to, Otterholt now past Tom Bingham. We saw Hugenhout try and get past Bingham a few laps ago, and Otterholt's made it through as well. So Tom Bingham not really being able to show the pace that he maybe once or did in last season. Of course, Bingham moving from the McLaren to the Mercedes, and we've got Scarrett right behind Bingham as well. Another one of the IGL Coatings drivers. And I think Tom Bingham's got to continue to look in his mirrors, because that Mercedes of Scarrett is looking very, very threatening at this moment.
Yeah, just a quick nod towards the chat. Oh, and Bingham almost into the back of a BMW. I think he may have actually made contact there, but he will he's letting the BMW rejoin to the circuit. And there is Scarrett looking up the inside of Bingham to take 27th overall. Just a nod to the chat. I can see some support in there for Regan Wetton, Hugenhout, Martin Deckens, and it's good to see people like Daswell and Nicholas Radmanson joining us to watch this race. Please feel free to ask any questions you've got in the chat, and we will try to get to them if there's not too much action. But here we are back at the front, of Brandon Tabone has closed that gap to 0.2 of a second to Swaski, and Dadswell 0.6 behind. So these two drivers have now noticed that Herbeno and Cope are coming, and this might be the time just to start pushing as we brought the tyres into temperature.
Yeah, Tabone doing a great job at the moment, but actually starting to come under pressure from Dadswell. And you know, the Mercedes even is super quick in a straight line, but the BMW tends to be just that little bit better on the tyre wear. And is that sort of going to play into itself as I see one of the pro drivers actually going to the pits? We have a replay, and what is going to happen? This is Pen Carver, the 120 BMW, fiercely forward car, coming into the bus stop. Oh, and he's hit the curb, just as you were saying, David. It's so easy to do. Into the wall, day is done, engine's blown, and he's going to have one very long walk back to the pits.
Yeah, luckily he has tow, and these drivers do have a one fast repair, so he will be able to rejoin the race if he feels like it's worth doing. Some drivers do, some drivers don't. We have also had Adam Morrison in the pits a couple of times, and I think a crash for Crisp at some point as well. But here we go. This battle is now well and truly on, because Herbeno and Cope are on the back of it. The top five are covered by 1.1 seconds, and Tabone goes to the outside. They go side by side up the hill. Dadswell doesn't know where to go. He picks Swaski to push him along. And will he go round the outside of Tabone? No, Tabone is still side by side with the Polish driver. And they're going up towards the chicane, and now Herbeno joins the slipstream train. Thomas Cope sits back and says, I'll let you all get on with it, with only 18 minutes gone in this race. And they come through in exactly the same order that they expected, but less time between them. 1 second from the leader, Thomas Cope, down in 5th place, and all this fighting is just going to let Ketty Larson close the gap.
Yeah, I mean, amazing job by our leader to sort of stay the course and almost just to fend off the the attack from Turbone. And just seen a really interesting sort of stat, and it's completely true from the YouTube chat, that Thomas Cope has the only non-German car in the top 20, which is kind of insane if you think about it. Thomas Cope there, number 1 car in the Lamborghini, now right on the back of our championship leader Herbenauer, or Herbeno even, as we head into turn 8. And actually you have to say that Sawicki has sort of extended his gap into Bones, now more under pressure from Dadswell than sort of being able to apply that pressure to the leader. So I think maybe should have Bones just sort of waited and bided his time, sort of found the opportunity, because at the moment it's looking like he's put himself on the back foot, and he's got so many cars eager to get past him behind him. I mean, this is such an ultra competitive field. I think he's going to really feel that as we head towards the bus stop.
Well, this is the difference between the races this season and last season. Last season we didn't have as many pros in the field, and when we had this reverse grid, it was normally a Pro-Am who might have got pole position or the front row, and they'd want to sort of just conserve their position in the Pro-Am category, whereas this is a front 12 covered by 8.6 seconds, all pro drivers. So this is all battling for position in their class, and actually you could probably say it's the top 22 drivers who are all in German machinery apart from Thomas Cope. But Thomas Cope doing a good job, as always, of just biding his time. He knows how to win this championship. Won it last year in Interlagos, where we were both commentating on that drive he had. With end of the season with a broken foot for the last few rounds, and that actually extended his form. It went upwards as the more his foot recovered as well. So Thomas Cope really looking to defend that championship, and yeah, sitting behind Herbeno, who won the opening round, it's not the worst result in the season at the moment if he does that this early on.
No, it's certainly not. And to rightly point out, Thomas Cope knows how to win championships, and as part of that, you've got to know how to and how not to pick your battles. And maybe Herbenau just following him through maybe is the better course. But Thomas Cope, I mean, such an incredible driver. He'll be working all of this out while driving a Lamborghini GT3 very, very quickly around the Watkins Glen circuit. Herbenau now looking quite menacing on the back of Dadswell as we cross the line to complete another lap here at Watkins Glen. You have to say, actually, it's looking like Dadswell is looking very, very closer to Bone as they head through turn 1. Niels-Erik Isaacson has gotten past one of the drivers. He's starting to make his way up the field.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt there. I was just thinking Isaacson finally getting past Sabini after 21 minutes of looking at the rear end of that Mercedes. And if these top 7 battle away, it's going to allow him to close up. We have the top 7 covered by 2 seconds at the moment. 2 seconds. It almost doesn't give me a chance to say it before they've all gone through the field. And we're coming up to 22 minutes gone in this race. This is where they'll start thinking of their strategy. If they think they're going to be held up, they'll try and pit. But when you're at the front and you pit, you end up further back in the pack and being held up, and that's not what you want to do. And with a pit stop probably roughly costing you about 30 seconds, you'd end up down in about 25th if you were one of the first to pit.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and you never really want to be the first driver to make that jump, because you always like to sort of know that at least other people are thinking of that strategy. And but you have to say that it doesn't look like the slipstream is super effective at the moment. Nobody's really able to sort of catch or pass anybody, at least not sort of in the top 7 or so. I mean, you have to say that, you know, they're all, it's sort of like a DRS train, but a slipstream train, if anybody knows their Formula 1 terminology. So I think it'll be interesting, and the marker will be, can Isaacson catch up to the back of Fletcher and catch up to the back of this sort of leading pack? And if he can, that's going to give pause for thought for everybody behind him. Maybe you're looking at Thomas Cope or maybe even Herbenau sort of taking a little bit of a gamble, coming in and trying to do the undercut. We're looking, I think we're starting to get into the pit window now, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Who is that going very wide? That's Sapini taking the incredibly wide line through turn 1. I think he might have even picked up a slowdown that was so wide.
Yeah, Sapini was going so wide there, he almost went past the Statue of Liberty on the way past. But yeah, he rejoined the circuit, maybe asked for a ticket on the way back in. But Swarovski leads the way from Tabone, Dadswell, Herbino, Cope, Larson, Fletcher. That is the group at the front of the field. And I don't think we've seen a race sort of like this in the GT Trophy with such a big field all grouped together at the front. Further back, Martin Deckens continues to lead the Pro-Am category from Sorensen and Geston Strumbacken, who's dropped back by 9 seconds from the leader of the Pro-Am category at this time. He is fighting off Fane and Greg Hubler, whereas in the AM category, Christoph Otterholt continues to lead the way from Graham Lynch, with Nürburg just behind, and Nürburg will want that good result. He was running well last time out, and the Swiss driver just didn't quite get the result he wanted, and this will be the icing on the cake if he can pull off a podium here at Watkins Glen. But we head back to the front of the race, and here we go. This is about the time when drivers can maybe make the end of the race if they want to take a risk on the pit stop, but I doubt any of these top 7 will be in at this moment in time.
Of course, the pit entry is so dangerous here. You have to sort of approach it on the racing line, of course going a lot slower than your racing counterpart, so you've really got to sort of announce that you're coming into the pit. So I think that might even be a consideration for some of the drivers out there, just not really wanting to be involved in any sort of silly accident at the pit stop. So yeah, I think we're going to sort of see a lot of people diving into the pits at the same time, but Sawicki at the moment able to extend his gap over second place, and he's running away with this. And if you are, Dadswell, Herbenow, or even Cope, you've got to start thinking about getting past Brandon Tabone and trying to sort of catch up to the BMW, because he is just extending his gap little by little, but soon he's going to be outside of that 1 second window, and at that point Sawicki's got such an easier race ahead of him.
Yeah, it does show the pace actually at the front. Dominic is run a best lap of 44.00. The only driver to get close to a 43 at the moment, but Tabone did a 44.03, but not as expected. You haven't seen 43 by Cope or Herbenow coming through. This is Ronald Grossman in the boot section of the circuit, slightly on the grass on entrance, as that there just upset the car a little bit, and halfway around the corner he is round and trying to rejoin in a safe manner. But Brandon Tabone is now falling back from Dominic Swaski, and Tom Dadswell really wants to try and find a way back. Here is Sean Crayley Swalsh, who is in 35th overall. He's just fighting off Mad Sher, who we know started from the pit lane. He's not the highest pit lane starter though. I think that honour is going to the Heist, just a couple of positions ahead of him. We've got Paul Kliska a little bit further back, who also started from the pit lane. But
yeah, Sean.
Sorry, go on.
I was going to say, I personally know Sean Cranley Swash super quick in those Lamborghinis, and it's nice to see sort of a Lamborghini versus Lamborghini fight, because at the moment we've got sort of the German manufacturer cars. As finally we see a move from Herbenow side by side with Dadswell into the bus stop chicane. Great move there by Herbenow to go all the way around the outside of his fellow BMW driver, and that's our championship leader up into third place. And now he's got to do the difficult task of catching up to Brandon Tabone and maybe even passing him. Certainly needs to do that if he even if he's even considering to get the race win here today.
What a move by Christoph Herbenow, risky as well. He's a championship leader, he doesn't need to take the risk, but that is a move of a driver who well and truly wants to make a move forward in this championship early on and stake his claim at the top of the table. As you can see now, Rene Hugenhout trying to go up the inside of Paul Cowlishaw in that familiar orange Ferrari, and just behind them is Scarat and Otterholt trying to stay out of the way, but Cowlishaw has been spun round there by Hugenhout. I think it possibly delayed Otterholt, as Schneebel had to force his way through as well, as we have a look at replay.
Yeah, let's have a look here. So Cowlishaw in the lead, and we've got Hugenhout behind, making quite sort of a late stage, and Cowlishaw almost loses it before the crash actually happens, but I think helped round by Hugenhout. So I think Cowlishaw entered the corner maybe a little bit sort of put off by Hugenhout's late dive to the inside, but Hugenhout certainly has to bear some responsibility, I think, there. I think he sort of at least helped Coley Short around, but great avoidance by everybody else as we have a little bit of lapped traffic, it looks like here. This is our leaders making their way through. The Mercedes driver doing a very good job to get out of the way, but for Tabone, you'll be desperately sort of thinking, you've got that Porsche ahead, you'll be desperately thinking, get out of the way, you know, I don't need any other sort of involvement. I just want to get past and defend from Herbenauer. So is lap traffic going to pay? That's Russ Fowler in the Mercedes, and I think it's Verlest in the Porsche that's up in the leading pack at the moment.
Yeah, it's not the idealist track to try and let people through. Now, you'll see the drivers coming through flashing the lights. They are meant to let drivers through within a couple of corners to try and ease the way through. iRacing normally does have the order of you don't have to completely obey blue flags, a bit like Formula 1, but they do, in this series, they are asked to try and make it easy within a couple of corners. And there's Mark Fletcher right up behind Thomas Cope. Ketty Larson up into 5th place, so he's gained in all of that, getting ahead of Tom Cope. And what a move that was by Herbenauer. It was very much a standard set there by the Belgian.
Indeed. Yeah, just sort of surprised that nobody's really pulling into the pits at the moment. You'd think with all of this battling going on ahead that you might at least sort of make a gamble and coming into the pits and just seeing if it can work out, because you know, for somebody like Mark Fletcher, the 111 car, you know, you're just being sort of caught up in this traffic as we see Herbenauer on the back of Brendan Tabone, and Herbenauer I think is going to try the same move he did on Dadswell a few laps ago. Pulls to the outside. He's going to once again try and go all the way around the outside of the Mercedes. Can't do it this time though, has to pull in behind Brendan Tabone, but that's allowed Dadswell to get right on the back of Herbenauer again. Herbenauer has gone from attacking Tabone to be defending from Dadswell as we head towards turn 6. All looks fairly clean, though Herbenauer had a fairly stellar turn 5, managed to extend that gap just enough, and once again Herbenauer is on the back of Tabone. I have to say, David, that Herbenauer is looking absolutely rapid at the moment.
Yeah, he's really pushing on, but he has to, as Swarovski 2.4 seconds in the lead. We're watching the pack sitting behind there, flashing his lights. Herbenauer. Tabone could do what he wants. If he wants to hold you up and block the way, that is his choice as long as it's within the rules. Herbenauer going very wide there. Now that is an interesting move because he has gained an advantage by going off the track there, and it'll be interesting to see what the officials think of that if he does make this pass work, because Tabone is hanging it out around the outside, and I think he's just going to let Tabone go here, and he's just trying not to get Dadswell. But Tabone, I think, headed for the pits. No, he's still defending. So Herbenauer still making this move, which started 4 corners ago, and it looks like he's going to make it through down into turn number 1.
Yeah, really interesting. Herbenauer did make that move while going outside of the white lines, but if anybody did the Watkins Glen 6 hours, you know that almost is the racing line. At least the pros are using it. You don't get any 1x, so yeah, that's putting the officials in a really difficult spot if they do indeed decide to have a little bit of an investigation into that. But you know, while they're all battling, absolutely great news for Dominic Sawicki, the 198 BMW that you see at the moment. The gap is up to 4 seconds. Herbenauer's got an absolute mountain to climb if he wants to catch and pass for the lead, as we do finally see a few pitters, and that's Deakins, the 227 Flemish SimSports car in the pits, along with I think one of the IGL Coatings drivers, Regan Wetter, and Graham Lynch as well. So drivers now starting to approach the pit lane, but now Tabone under pressure from Dadswell as we head through turn 7. Dadswell's going to have to go all the way around the outside. He's going to get an absolutely great launch out of the corner, but it's going to be on the outside for turn 8. And we're going to see once again Tabone losing another position at turn 8. Dadswell's going to have to brake super late, which he does. Round the outside he goes, and Dadswell up into 3rd. Tabone losing 2 places in 2 laps, and everybody using that fairly adventurous line on the outside of turn 8.
Yeah, it slightly reminds me of when the IndyCars first went to COTA, but anyway, we won't talk about track limits here as we see a car in background that's gone round. But if I was the leader now, I'd be in. I would be in the pits.
He is in. Just as you said that, he pulled into the pits.
I was just going to say, as Penkava goes round again, and that was a car in the background, but I thought he's got to pit now because he's got to take advantage of Herbino now being on clear air, setting quicker lap times. He wants to pit, get his track position, because he knows Herbino will be in the next lap or two anyway. And as you can see, Larson in, Sapini in, Winkler in, Marsaini in, Howlich, Chris Dane's in, who's had a very quiet race at the moment, but is moving forward for Dane. And Luke Slang, Greston Strumbacken and Stuart Winness all hit pit road, and let's see where they come out, which leaves Herbino out in front, trying to push on to try and make this strategy work for him. Mark Fletcher is staying ahead of Thomas Cope as well, so this is costing Thomas Cope. He's now 4 seconds behind Christoph Herbino, and the champion from last season is really needing to try and get past Mark Fletcher and push forward while this pit stops phase is going on, because this is a lap you take advantage of.
Yeah, this is certainly where the race is going to be won and lost for Herbenauer and, of course, our race leader. Yeah, this is so Swicky even getting all mixed up. So many cars on the grid, but it's undercut versus overcut. And Swicky has chosen just to get the pit stop out of the way, but the advantage that Herbenauer is going to have is that he's got less fuel in the car, and that is, of course, it's going to allow the car to go quicker. It's going to have more grip, more ability to take more sort of minimum speed through the apex. So Herbenauer's got to put the absolute best in lap that he can, and I wonder if he's either going to think about extending a few more laps. Of course, that's dependent on whether he's got enough fuel to do so. He's been stuck in traffic, and doesn't look to me like he's going to be pulling into the pits anytime soon. Yeah. Just as I say that, he is pulling into the pits. So this is now really crucial to see which is the fastest strategy. Is it quicker to pit 1 lap earlier, or is it quicker to do the overcut and pit 1 lap later than the competition?
Yeah, Christoph Herbino, normally the driver that gets the most out of the first tank of fuel in these races to make the pit stop a little bit shorter. He comes down to his pit box, which is right near the end after his great qualifying session. So he pulls into the pits. You can see other drivers in front as well, and everybody in front of the former leader Swicky is in the pits. So this is where it gets interesting. The lights are flashing on the BMW, getting the traffic out the way. That is Joseph, that's Clist in front, who started from pit lane. He makes it out of the way. Herbino is on the pit exit. We'll be able to see him in the bottom of the corner soon, and I think Herbino is going to stay behind, and that was a perfect strategy by Swicky.
Yeah, but Herbino has gained almost 2 seconds on Swicky, so while that has worked and Swicky has got the track position, Herbino has gained effectively half of the gap that he needed to. Of course, Herbino is going to be struggling a little bit on this first lap. Tyres may be a little bit colder as we see Thomas Cope now coming under pressure from Larson. They go side by side on the back straight. Thomas Cope on the inside. Just gets clean passed by the Mercedes. Cope down to 4th place. Larson has already been into the pit, so that's a great move there. One of the IGL Coatings drivers, Mark Fletcher as well, I think has gained a position in all of that. Dadswell actually down in 8th place, so that has not worked out for the Brit. Dadswell, who was in 3rd position before the pit stops, is down in 8th. That's disastrous for him. And that's Marsaini getting on the inside of Sapini into turn 6, but we'll make it through. A little bit of a flash of the lights there from the BMW driver, but that has not worked out well for Dadswell whatsoever.
No, slower pit stop than Thomas Cope by 7 seconds. So the stationary time, well, that's a complete pit stop time from start of pit lane to end of pit lane. So not ideal for Dadswell, but he's still got time to work forward. He is still in the group behind Carl Winkler, who we saw finish 2nd last time by, as we see a Audi in front. That's David Gill trying to move forward from 42nd to try and gain another position after his incident earlier on in the race, but they have to get him out of the way of Carl Winkler in a minute. But like you say, the gap has closed, but what is important for Swicky is he has track position. That is Gill in the wall, and he's Dadswell ran it. Oh, who's running into the back of Dadswell? That's Sapini. So Gill has lost control into the final corner. Dadswell's tried to avoid it, and he's been spun around by Sapini.
High drama, Dadswell. That's a really broken car. I think it's crabbing on the straight. He'll be lucky if he can even continue after that. Huge hit, and let's have a look on board from Dadswell. Oh, so he's hit the Audi, hit the wall, tried to get out of the way, and is going to get collected by the Mercedes. Into the wall he goes. Somehow that car is still at least drivable. Such a heavy hit to the front of that car. Of course, the BMW front engine, so He's going to be making his way around, but I want to see on board from the Mercedes of Sapini, because that's sort of the key. And yeah, Gil sort of causing all of that. No fault of his own, really. He sort of made an innocent mistake by himself. We've all done it here at Watkins, but huge consequences in the end.
Yeah, and this is the view which you after here is Sapini as he comes around the final corner on board, and it just hit. They both just chose the same way at the same time, and Sapini maybe he got on the brakes and just couldn't get it stopped or whatever. But we were just looking there previously. Martin Deckens up to 11th place in the Pro-Am category, but Thomas Cope, now he's got his tyres back up to racing temperature, is all over Ketty Larson to try and get what would be a third place in a row. He had the recovery drive last time out. He's been bumped a little bit in places in this race, and he's just lost a bit of pace. But since the pit stop, Herbino still only 2.2 behind. The gap to the leader is still being held at a decent rate.
Yeah, Herbino only 0.2 of a second quicker than Swicky on that last lap, and that's not enough really to even sort of catch up to Swicky, or especially it's not enough of a pace delta to easily get past our race leader. So Herbino has got it all to do in the final 20 minutes of this race. Thomas Cope, though, another one of the drivers that is managing to find a little bit more pace. But actually he's had a poor turn one, because now Isaacson on the back of Thomas Cope. They head side by side. Isaacson on the inside. He's going to get past the Lamborghini driver. Doesn't even really have to wait until he hits the brakes. Just straight line speed is enough for the Mercedes driver. And Thomas Cope, after almost on the back of Larson thinking about a move, gets passed by another one of the IGL Coatings drivers, and Cope back down in 5th place.
Yeah, not ideal for Thomas Cope, and he will be wanting to try and fight back as we see Greg Hubler going to the inside here and making up a position on Dadswell, who is trying to get that car round towards the end of the race. Gaston Strumbacken is the next one, and while we've got the slightest of calming down in this manic race of over 50 cars around Watkins Glen, we have under 20 minutes to go. And we've got to give a shout out to our sponsors. As you can see on the graphics, please subscribe and hit the notification bell for Apex Racing TV. It does help us out and it will support the channel. We also have to thank Virtual Racing School, who come on board and can improve your on-track performance with 50 plus data packs for road and oval racing, setup track guides, data analysis software and one-on-one coaching. That can be teamed with our other sponsor of Apex Racing Academy. 29 data packs, setup track guides integrated with the VRS system, weekly coaching groups and much more. And our final sponsor, SDK Gaming, that you can see on the screen at the moment. It allows you to put a virtual live HUD over your iRacing event or your own racing, help you stream to Twitch in the most complete overlay on iRacing, broadcasting your leagues and series and syncing your commentary teams. This is why me and Sebastian can see exactly what Jamie is showing us, allows us to see exactly what he thinks we need to see. So it's a brilliant thing, and it also allows you to adjust your team strategy on the fly when you're running in group races. So there is our three sponsors, which we really do have to thank very much for supporting this series.
We certainly do. Yeah, I'm a massive advocate of the SDK Gaming software. Certainly helped around the Watkins Glen 6 hours. While we were talking about SDK, Plouch had a very late defensive move into the bus stop, almost colliding with Massani in the BMW, and I sort of jumped back from my monitor because I thought there was going to be an almighty accident. They just somehow managed to avoid it, but that was oh so close. Yeah,
close battle, and here is another close battle as Isaacson is now on the back of Larson. Our pole position sitter has dropped Thomas Cope, who just doesn't seem to have the pace here today in the Lamborghini, which is unusual to say, but Cope does come on strong later on in the championships. So it's really interesting to see what will happen later on in the series. But this Watkins Glen circuit not suiting the Lamborghini, and we talked about a lot of Mercedes in this field, but the first race was won by a BMW followed by an Audi, and this time we've got two BMWs leading the way.
Yeah, we do indeed. The two Mercedes battling it out, teammates, and I think there'll be a huge amount of respect between the two drivers. Not much fighting, and seemed a little bit like Larson just letting Isaacson through, or at least not really wanting to take out two of the team cars. Isaacson now getting through into third place. As we see Nuremberg now around the outside of the 192 Mercedes. Oh, and there's contact at turn one. Marcel pushed into the barrier, just avoids though. Actually hitting the barrier, has to do the awkward reversing back onto the racing line. And that was oh so close to, again, an almighty accident, but it seems like luck is just sort of preventing it. We've had so many sort of cars sort of across the track, but thankfully we've not seen any incidents. It's been relatively clean for Watkins Glen. You know, Watkins Glen is sort of known for being quite sort of difficult to drive, but it's really good to see how close the racing's been so far.
Yeah, it's been really close racing, and this is Herbino, who's now cleared for traffic and sits 1.0 seconds behind Swarovski. Further back, just before we get Herbino closing in on the Polish driver, we do have to mention Martin Deckens still leading the Pro Am category from Sorensen and Hubler, who's jumped ahead of Geston Schumbachen. And in the Am category, Otto Holt still leads the way ahead of, we actually have to scroll down our timing screen here, Graham Lynch and Luke Point, who's just fighting off Mad Surge, who could get a podium in the Lamborghini after starting from the pit lane.
Yeah, that would be an absolutely incredible turn as we see some flashing lights. That's our race leader. Does it look like a little bit of desperation from Swicky inside of that cockpit? Really not getting lucky with that Lamborghini traffic. Well, at least who would have feel. That's the 206 car, and that's Jose Wilcox at the wheel of that very lovely red Lamborghini. Herbenauer really needs to get this done. There's a Mercedes going off the track to get out of the way. Quite an aggressive way of letting people pass, but it certainly was effective. Herbenauer really needs to plan his attack. We saw how much time you can lose if you start to sort of battle and go side by side throughout the middle sector. So Herbenauer needs to have a really clean overtake to make sure that third place doesn't think about getting an idea. As we see Luke Pint and what is going to happen to him. Oh no, he's just understeered wide at turn 7 into the wall. And he's managed, I think, just to get away with that, but it's such a helpless feeling in the car, isn't it, David? You know, you could almost tell that you're going to go into the wall, but there's nothing you can do to stop it, and you just feel so helpless.
Yeah, we've also heard through the timing screen that Lee Shields has crashed somewhere out on circuit, so is that Lee Shields there? I think that is actually Lee Shields there. Oh, and he was reversing across the track. I hope everybody has missed him. Luke Point has headed to the pits, and we're just going to have...
So let's have a look and see what happens to Lee Shields as we head through the penultimate corner. He's going to hit the curb and just lose the rear, and that barrier comes thick and fast. Lee Shields there having now to do the awkward job of reversing across the track. It's a precarious position to be in, super dangerous, and you know, you're watching your relative and there he goes, finds reverse gear and actually manages to get across the track relatively safely, hits the wall for good measure, but he is all done and actually back out on the track as we regain our battle with the lead. Dominic Swicky now 5/10 ahead of Herbenauer. Isaacson 6.5 seconds behind Herbenauer, also wide through turn 5, almost hitting the wall. As we see further down the order, it's Mercedes versus Audi. There's a BMW in the background as well. All three German manufacturers going at it, battling for the same piece of track, it feels like.
Yeah, it feels very much Le Mans 1999 Mercedes versus Audi, but the Mercedes are not flying up in the air this time, but they are flying out on track, sitting 5th, 3rd, 4th and 8th overall in the top 10. And we're looking back now at Lasse Sorensen, who's running 2nd in class, just trying to fight off the attentions of Greg Hubler, who is the top returning driver to the Pro-Am class in this race. He has Dadswell trying to recover behind and Geston Strumbacken. So technically Hubler is in a sandwich of the green Mercedes team, who are also part of Isaacson and Larson's. So it is, you see a lot of cars which are quite similar, but there is 3 or 4 cars per team, but only so many of them score towards the championship points.
Yeah, anybody that's watched any of the Formula 3 championships on Apex Racing TV will be very familiar with the IGL Coatings outfit, dominant in the Nordic F3 Championship and fairly dominant as well in this GT3 Championship as well, as finally we have a battle for the lead. Herbenauer on the back of Zwicky. Zwicky feels the need to go to the inside, but allows to open up the corner, gain as much entry speed as he can, and Zwicky has managed to survive at least one of the straights, but he's got 12 minutes to do it, and Herbenauer just has so much more command of the car at the moment. Seems like he might have a little bit more tyre life, and Herbenauer is a force to be reckoned with in this race.
Yeah, Herbenauer now 3/10 of a second behind Zwicky. Zwicky now has to defend for his life. He's already practiced defending for his life earlier on, but now there's only 11 minutes to go, and he will not want to give up this lead after leading every lap apart from his pit stop, one lap from his pit stop, which was led by Christoph Herbenauer. So these are the only two drivers who have led here at Watkins Glen today. Zwicky trying to defend nicely, trying to keep it clean. A bit of a slide by the BMW there. But I do find it quite ironic that, like I said before, everybody goes on about Mercedes. Paulich is up the inside of Sapini for 8th place. Sapini still hanging on around the outside. This is going to let Marcini into the battle as well, just behind. And Paulich round the outside. He's going to get the run down to the second to last corner and takes 8th place in the Audi. But back to the leaders into turn 1, and Herbenauer will have a good run up towards the chicane this time.
Yeah, it seems like that third to last corner is proving to be a really good overtaking opportunity. I wonder if Herbenauer almost needs to try and employ some of the same tactics. He's right in the wheel tracks, though, of our leader. They're side by side as we head around the final corner before we hit the straight. Herbenauer to the outside. We know he can go around the outside. Breaks a little bit early, though. Thinks better of it. Takes flight over the curbs, and somehow Zwicky still leads. Herbenauer, though, certainly wanting that lead, and seems like he has the pace to do so, and it just felt like he's sort of rehearsing for a move as we get closer to the end of the race, because it almost felt like Herbenauer could have done that if he wanted to.
Yeah, I think he was just a little bit far back, and obviously both being BMWs makes it that little bit harder. I think when he made the move on Dadswell earlier on, Dadswell had made a mistake onto the straight, but here we go down into the boot section again, and Marcini now having a look at Sapini, Sapini has been on the defence from lap 1 here in this race. First it was on Isaacson, Larson, Coe, and now it's on Marcini, who's made his way through. Kessler is coming up behind him very quick in the similar liveried Mercedes, but back at the front the gap is still 3/10 of a second, and Zwicky is holding on. He's only got 9 minutes left to go, and he may claim his first Apex Racing League win here in the GT Trophy.
Going to have to fight very hard if he wants that honour, but it does seem like he's able to defend. He knows where to place the car, and that's such a crucial skill, especially for GT3 racing, but he runs a little bit wide out of turn 1. That's going to allow Herbenauer to catch a little bit more as we head through turns 2 and 3 and 4. Well, I say turns, more like inconveniences for the drivers, and now we're onto the back straight. The slipstream effect taking over. Herbenauer pulls to the outside. Herbenauer got an absolutely mega run out of turn 1. They're going to be side by side as we head into the braking zone of the bus stop. Zwicky once again brakes later, has more confidence, more command over his car, and he keeps the lead. Herbenauer dropping back to 7/10 of a second. I think Herbenauer was a bit surprised at how late Zwicky managed to brake. Absolutely incredible racing from our top 2. But watch Isaacson. He's gained a second in the last few laps. Isaacson could become a real threat to these two as we head into the final minutes of this race.
Yeah, he's going to have to gain very quickly, though. It's a 4.5 second gap to the back of Herbenauer, so it's going to have to be one hell of a drive by Isaacson. Maybe he bided his time just a little too long in the first half of the race, because I think it took 20 minutes to get past up into the top 8. So we will see what happens here for Isaacson, but leading the way is Swarovski from Herbenauer. Here we are back at Leonard Schnubel, who's fighting off the tensions of Stuart Winness for 19th place, and they are just ahead of Frein Hugenhout, Skurat, and our leader in Otter Holt. who's just looking at the top 25 at this moment in time. Only a minute off the leader, wide there by Stuart Win-S. But there is Otto Holt leading the way in the AM category. He has a 30-second lead over Graham Lynch in the Ferrari, so it's been utterly dominant by the Norwegian, who's even trying to get the cars in front of him out of the way.
Yeah, incredible job in 30 seconds, and he's been battling Tom Bigham for this entire race. So Otto Holt has not had it easy. Justin Bakken has had some form of issue out there. He's dropped a few positions down as we once again regain this battle for the lead. Herbenauer trying to force Swicky to be able to get to the inside. They both take flight once again through the bus stop, but Herbenauer cannot find a way past that brightly coloured BMW at the moment, and his time ebbs away. The race is sort of going in the favour of the Polish driver. Herbenauer is going to have to try and find something a little bit special to get past Swicky. But we have Lamborghini traffic up ahead, and you saw how early Swicky felt the need to get on his flasher, flash the lights. So I think Swicky feeling the pressure almost undoubtedly, but Herbenauer just cannot find a way past at the moment.
Yeah, it's great defensive drive by Swicky. He's been watching the Fernando Alonso School of Defence recently, and he's fighting, as Chris Kamara said, fighting like beavers at the front of his field to try and win here at Watkins Glen. But Herbenauer is a clever driver. He will be just trying to work. Swicky knows how to win races in this championship. He's actually the winner of the last two events. He won the final round at Interlagos last year. He won the first round here at Silverstone, and that's sideways by Swicky, which is going to give Herbenauer a great run onto the pit straight. Herbenauer looks to the inside, down into turn number one, and Swicky's just going to give the place, going to hold it round the outside. Will he be able to do that? Herbenauer nudges him out wide, and Swicky probably should have gave the space, but now he has the slipstream as they head up the hill through turn number 3 and 4 and heading towards the famous Watkins Glen chicane. Can Swicky give the fight back to the Belgian? He's right in the slipstream. Herbenauer feeling the need to defend. He knows how late the Polish driver can be on the brakes, and I think that is game, set and match to Christoph Herbenauer.
Yeah, that was a superb driver by Herbenauer, really sort of capitalising on the mistake of Swicky. And now Swicky's got it all to do if he wants his first race win. Herbenauer, though, sort of galloping off in the distance at the moment. Sort of Swicky needs to reset his mindset, sort of accept that the place has been lost, but sort of just find a way to try and get it back, but without sort of over-driving the car, which is, I can assure you, easier said than done. But Herbenauer at the moment, the gap already out to 9/10 of a second, and Swicky really struggling at the moment. But Isaacson and all of that, the gap is now down to 3.5 seconds. So Isaacson is sort of starting to catch up. He can see in the distance the top two, and yeah, if Swicky starts to struggle a little bit more, he's going to really find Isaacson on his rear end. As Thomas Cope trying to get past the other IGL Coatings driver. This is Larson. Cope, after struggling earlier on, really needs to get into 4th place. Needs those extra points because his main championship rival Herbenauer is currently getting top points at the moment.
Yeah, Cope would love a top 4 here. He won't be looking at the podium, I don't think, as Isaacson actually closed a 1.5 seconds last time by, but that was while the battling was happening. So we probably will see the Norwegian on the back of the Polish driver as Thomas Cope goes very wide, and again somebody else who needs a ticket to get back into the circuit as he comes back to try and fight Larson in the last couple of minutes. Behind these, Mark Fletcher has dropped back 3 seconds, and then 3 seconds behind that we have I don't know what you call a huge group of Germans, but there's 5 of them there from 7th to 11th trying to be the top German in the race. And there's Kessler going past Sapini. That looks like team orders to me between the two cars. Sapini has been defending all the way through the race, and it looks like they've allowed Kessler to try and go after Marceni.
Yeah, and Sapini also carrying a little bit of damage from that incident earlier on at the final corner, as I think that Sean Cranley-Swash just getting out of the way of the pro drivers. So I think, yeah, you know, you're very, very much right. I do believe it was team orders, and I think not helped by Sapini's damage. Here's that's Coley-Shaw, who has fixed his car. Of course, he had the damage earlier on, and actually the incident at turn 6 as we rejoin the battle between Cope and Larson. Cope thinking about the move down the inside of turn 9, but is forced to the outside. He's going to get the switchback though. He's going to go on the inside of the penultimate corner. This is high risk stuff from Thomas Cope, and the Lamborghini driver just decides to back out, thinks better of it, forces Larson wide, but Cope follows him through, so not really gained much through the final sector for Thomas Cope, but Cope at the moment looking like he is really trying to get past Larson as we start the final lap of the race.
Yeah, we have the white flag out, only just made it to the white flag, and he almost had another lap. A lot wide goes Larson. This is going to give Thomas Cope a great run up towards the chicane. Urbano continues to lead from Swicky by 1.8 seconds. Isaacson probably could have done with that other lap to close the gap, and Larson leads the way with Cope right behind. So here comes Thomas Cope. Can he try and make a mistake by Larson? No. Larson, oh, so close to that barrier on the right-hand side, but that is the racing line. And it looks like Larson may just hold on to this 4th place ahead of Thomas Cope.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you're right. That is sort of the final place to really overtake, unless Cope is feeling adventurous into turn 9. As we have a look at Martin Deakins, our highest Pro-Am driver, down in 12th place, which just goes to show the strength of the pro drivers today on the back of Sapini. Can he make it into the top 11? As we have a look at Christoph Herbenauer, who has had an absolutely mega final. Oh, Thomas Cope has dropped down the field. He spun at turn 7. Disaster for our Lamborghini driver, Thomas Cope. Down 2 positions, Fletcher and Winkler both gotten past. So Thomas Cope, after trying to get 4th place, is going to have to settle for 7th.
Yeah, not good for Thomas Cope, but here comes the Belgian. He won in Interlagos. He won at Silverstone at the start of this year. And even with a nudge at the wall at the end of this race, Christoph Herbenau wins in Watkins Glen, 2.6 seconds ahead of a brilliant defensive drive by Thomas Swicky. Niles Isaacson, who qualified on the pole and had the reverse grid, drops to finishes in 3rd place after a quiet start to his race ahead of Larson, Fletcher, Winkler, and we're waiting for Cope to come across the line. But here is the battle with Martin Deckens in, who's going to take a 2nd win in a row in Pro-Ams as he starts his championship off well, and that is 2 Belgians leading the way in the 2 championships. Sorensen's going to take 2nd place ahead of the experienced Greg Hubler, who's just trying to fight off Dadswell to the line, but that will be still 3rd in class for Hubler, ahead of Greston Strumbacken. And then we'll look further back to Christopher Otterholt, who has been utterly dominant. That was a hard one to get out. And ahead of Graham Lynch, and he's going to win the class and take a 2nd win in a row, and it looks like a dominant performance, 2 wins out of 2 in every class for the winners of this race.
Yeah, really showing the consistency that these drivers have at the moment. And will it be the same case in 1 week's time, as we see Graham Lynch in 28th place just coming around as there's some donuts going on in the background there. Graham Lynch, one of the Ferrari drivers, heading around the final corner. Great job though by all of the drivers. Watkins Glen is such a difficult track. Anybody that's driven the 6 hours will know, how hard it is to keep it out of the wall and do consistent and clean laps for a stint. So all the drivers crossing the line, great job by them. But you have to say, what heartbreak for Sawicki. He was so close to his 1st win, and if he hadn't have made that mistake out of the final corner, I don't really see how Herbenau could have gotten past him.
Yeah, it's tough for the Polish driver, but still a podium. As we look at race results, Christoph Herbenau wins from Dominic Sawicki and Isaacson. Larson, Fletcher, Winkler rounds out the top 6 ahead of the spinning Thomas Cope. Paulich in 8th, Marceni 9th, and Kessler beats his teammate Sapini to the top 10, with Chris Daines rounding out the top 12. In the Pro-Am category, we have the win for Martin Deckens ahead of Lasse Sorensen. Greg Hubler, Mats Greston Strumbacken comes home in 4th to continue his strong start to the season. Then there's a bit of a gap back to Hugenhout, Skarat, Bain, Tom Bingham in the top 8. for his second race in the Pro-Am category. Regan Wetter and Jose Willix rounds out the top 10. And in the AM category, it is a second win in a row for Christoph Ottenholt, who beats Graham Lynch and Mads Schur, who started from the pit lane to the podium, ahead of Sean Cranley-Schwalsh, who gained one of the most positions in this race. Russ Fowler in 5th, Nürburg 6th, Pint, Clist, Shields and Bailey rounding out the top 10. Well, what a race that was, and we've got drivers heading into the interview area after they've jumped out of their cars, and I think I'll let you take the first one, Sebastian, and that is our 3rd place finisher, Niels Erik Isaacson.
Have a chat. Good evening, Niels. It's really nice to be talking to you. Of course, we had a lot of chats about Formula 3 cars, but absolutely rapid in the Mercedes GT3 as well. Are you happy with your 3rd place, or did you want a little bit more from this week?
No, I'm very happy. I had some pace, and I could have been a little bit more tough in the start, but I think overall it was a very good day.
Yeah, I think it was. So we were saying in commentary, at the start of the race that, I was sort of thinking that some of the drivers might sort of try and save their tyres. Was that a consideration for you?
Yeah, I think I had 52% on left front, so I think I did well. I didn't have any issues, so yeah, that was good.
Yeah, it certainly was, and of course, there was that sort of big gaggle of cars sort of from the leader down before the first pit stops. Did you sort of think about coming in early, or were you sort of set on pitting on the lap that you ended up pitting on?
Yeah, I thought about it, but I didn't know where I would come out, so I just decided to just go until the end and pit with the other guys. So yeah, I have saved a little bit, so I jumped a couple of cars. So it was very good race.
Yeah, it certainly looked like it from your side. I think you were stuck. I can't quite remember, but you were definitely stuck behind a car for a few laps, and we in commentary all sort of went, "Oh, Niels is finally gotten past." So, were you sort of wanting to sort of take risks, or were you sort of happy just sort of staying behind cars and sort of just sort of lapping away and just sort of trying to take opportunities where you could?
I saw the train in front didn't drive away, so it was fine. I could save some fuel and some tires. So it was a bit calculated, but it was nice to get past, so I could do the chase.
It was indeed. Well, great race by yourself. Before we let you go and celebrate your podium position, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to on the broadcast?
Yes, you guys, and also our sponsors, Sande Trafikkskole and IGL Coatings, and of course Kjetil, who made it easy for me when I catched him. So thank you, guys.
Thank you very much, and good luck for the race in 1 week's time. We wish you all very well.
Thank you.
And I think that might be it, David. I think all of our drivers very exhausted after Watkins Glen. Of course, such a physical track, and if they're in Europe, they're going to be pretty hot right now, as this heat wave is certainly not kind to anybody.
Yeah, I'm surprised considering last week we had an influx of drivers. I think we had almost all 50 popping into the interview room. I'm not sure if Jamie would be able to pick up what happened to Thomas Cope on the last lap, as we do have a driver popping in who we can pick to in a minute. I just wonder whether we could pick up what happened to Thomas Cope on that final lap, because it was unusual to see a mistake from Thomas Cope and to lose that many positions. Here we go. This could be it. Yes, this is it. And he's heading down into the bottom end of the boot section. And it's just too much speed into the corner, and around it went. So that is not the way that Thomas Cope would have wanted the race, and almost rejoined into into Mark Fletcher. So well noticed there by Cope to not rejoin into the side of the car. But our next interviewee will be Lassie Sorensen. Lassie, a great drive for you, a podium as well in your class, so you must be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm very happy that it was a struggle in the qualifying. I had a good practice. I think I was within P10 maybe, P11 in the practice, but I touched the wall on my hot lap in the qualifying, so I had a 0x and a 0 counting round. So I had to, I got a bit stressed in the two second attempts.
Yeah, it's starting in a pack of what was 50 plus cars, and you sort of mid pack. I think you started in 21st overall.
Yeah,
How
that's
do you
correct.
approach that kind of race? Because obviously you want to move forward, but it's about trying to stay in the race at first.
Yeah, I in the last race I did push to get forward in the field, so I did some learning from that. So it's just a waiting game. I have to wait for the right opportunities and the right places on the track to pass them.
Yeah, and you were in a battle with Greg Hubler for a lot of that race, managed to hold him off. But did you think Martin was just probably that little bit too far ahead?
Yeah, I had a bit damage before I had the pit because I was in the touch the wall, and I also had another guy touching me on the left hand side in the start. So I had quite a little bit steering angle on the straights. So I did lack a little bit of speed, but I did manage to put it through until the pit. So then I had the fast repair, and then I had a working car afterwards.
So, second place here, is this sort of a championship building start to you, or are you sort of taking it race by race?
Sort of taking it by race. This is my first season in GT3. I just run the Formula 3 previous, and I also pretty fresh into the iRacing, so it's just a learning process.
Well, you're learning very quickly, being second in the class this time. Before we let you go, is there anybody you want to give a shout out to?
Yeah, it has to be all my teammates for all the effort they do and all the help they give. We are a great team with a lot of knowledge, so we share everything in our practice sessions. So thanks to EGL Coatings, iRacing, and also our sponsors, of course.
And good luck to you next week at the Hockenheim Ring.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
So that was Lassie Sorensen, who finished second in the Pro-Am category. And we've got time for one more interview as Dominic Swaki has joined us. And I'll leave this down to you, Sebastian.
Good evening, Dominic. Welcome to the commentary box. Great race by yourself. Also close to that, that first illustrious win, but just wasn't meant to be today, was it?
Yep. Hello, guys. Hello, everyone watching. Yeah, it was really close. Yeah, very, very close. I think I was 3 laps away from winning this race, but shout out to Christoph, who did really good job and just keep it clean on the end without mistakes, and he could make it in front.
Yeah, it looked like, as you said, you were 3 laps away. It looked like in the final corner you had a little bit of oversteer that might have allowed Christoph to get the run to get the run of you into turn 1.
Yeah, I did slightly. I run wide. I think also slip a bit the rear, put some opposite lock, but obviously lost ton of speed. He could do the pass into the first turn. Also wanted to go a bit wide to make better exit, but I slipped once again because of the really worn tires at the end. Yeah, just couldn't make it clean. But yeah, really happy with P2, obviously. Good result. I've always liked this track, and I think yeah, it's probably the best track for me to get the podium for sure in this series.
Absolutely superbly. We're noticing in commentary, how late you could be onto the brakes into the bus stop, and I think that really sort of helped you be able to defend, because it felt like most of your race was spent sort of having to defend from cars behind you.
Yeah, it was a bit of that. Yeah, I was practicing like before the 6 hours of Glen. I had really bad bus stop. I was carrying way too less speed into the second apex. Then I was like checking VRS data, analyzing, and improve it a bit. I think it was not great, but it was enough to to drive at top and to actually defend position there.
Certainly worked out for you, and of course we moved to the Hockenheim Ring for the next race. You said that Watkins Glen is sort of one of your best tracks. Do you think that you can sort of transfer this pace that you had today to Hockenheim?
Yeah, I only tried Hockenheim once before last year, and it wasn't the best track for me. I was struggling a bit with the pace, so I need to do a lot of practice throughout next week and make sure I'll can do similar as today. Obviously, today was a bit lucky with qualifying. I was surprised with reverse grid. I forgot about it, so yeah, it was a big surprise when I started on front row for sure.
Yeah, I think it caught us out by surprise as well. I think Isaacson as well. But before we let you go, of course, I just wanted to apologise. I think as our YouTube chat was saying, we might have been mispronouncing your name, so we apologise for that, and we'll improve for your next race at Hockenheim. But of course, before we let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out to at all?
Yeah, of course. Shout out to Fiercely Forward, my team. Obviously, the Martin who was running today, he had a bit of issues with qualifying, also during the race. But I believe before this round we were 8th in team championship. I hope we can increase the position after my second place. Also, shout out to GTL VRT, the Polish team. We've been practicing a lot together, and also to Dariusz Felczak, who is a really fast driver. He doesn't race a lot, but he helped me a lot at Watkins Glen. We were practicing together. Yeah, thanks a lot to these guys, and see you next week.
Indeed. See you next week, and wish you all the luck for the Hockenheim ring.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Thanks for broadcast, guys, and have a nice evening.
You too. And David, what an absolutely great race we've had here at Watkins Glen today. It's been, such high drama at times, but really clean racing as well. And it's sort of what we come to expect from the ARL GT3 trophy.
Yeah, super close race. We saw a train of almost 10 cars at times battling for the lead of this race in the early stages. And normally we see 2 or 3, maybe 4 pull out in front and go for that win altogether. So it was great battling throughout. Yet another win, but a different type of win for Christophe Herbeno. He really had to work for it, only taking the lead 3 laps from the end and even hitting the wall on the final corner, which if he had lost that win, it would have been replicant of J.R. Hildebrand at Indianapolis all them years ago. So for tonight, that is everything here from Watkins Glen. We will be heading to the Hockenheim circuit next week, the Grand Prix circuit there in Germany, for the GT trophy for a 60-minute race. We do have a double 30-minute race format coming up later in the year, but we will explain that more when we get that far. So tonight, I've been David Whitehouse. Next to me has been Sebastian Boscher-Williams, and in the production booth we have had Jamie Fluke, and we will see you next week at the Hockenheim Ring for another brilliant GT trophy race.